Okay, Galaxy's Child. This has several different things in it that are very noteworthy for being different. Obviously, we have the space monster thingy, which is not evil, it's just there and creates problems by its mere existence rather than actually being a genuine threat. Kind of, sort of. The space monster thing is actually just like, oh, we found this cosmozoan and we're trying to study it, and oh, we think it's dead, but it's pregnant and needs to give birth after being dead. Oh, we should help it with that. Oh no, the baby is now attempting to suck the energy out of our ship because apparently that's what this species does. um yeah, that was mostly excuse for plot to happen. It's like a background general thing that the crew uses their reason for going about their day and doing other things, and we mostly focus on the slice of life's aspects of the day-to-day operations of the crew. Also, this is the second Leah Brahms episode and the first one to have a version of Leah Brahms that's not a hologram, although it has the hologram too. That got fun. Yeah, see, one of the things about this episode that is interesting is that Leah Brahms shows up on the Enterprise in order to, you know, take a look at things and check to see how well the ship is running, because Starfleet Command knows that the ship has been damaged more than once over the previous three seasons, and that Geordie LaForge has had to hotwire it several times in order to keep it running, and so on and so forth. Time to check things and make sure everything is working acceptably. That is actually an interesting part of it. Is that Leah Brahms takes a look at the ship? It's like, huh, you changed this thing before I was able to tell you to change it to be like that. That actually pops up in the episode. It's like Leah Brahms notes a minor modification and tells Geordi that they were actually planning on making that fleet standard anyways because it just works better that way. And Geordi had already done that. That was cool. There were several other things was like commentary. It's like, oh, you changed this, you changed that. Why'd you change this to that? And so on and so forth. Which, quite frankly, it's all a bunch of techno babble. So trying to um, pay attention to the exact specifics is kind of meaningless. But like the general gist of it, though, is that Leah Brahms actually thinks Geordi is doing a good job with tinkering with the systems that she's doing. Now, it's relatively early in the episode that Geordi realizes that when he'd programmed the holographic simulation, he'd gotten the personality completely wrong. Why? Because he had no idea what the personality of the real Leah Brahms was. He literally just didn't know at all. So he made something up that he kind of sort of thought might be right ish or adjacent to being right, something like that. And then realizes that nope, actually it's completely wrong. Although to be quite honest, it's like so someone like Leah Brahms being like a foremost expert and having a meek, subservient personality doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But whatever. As it turns out, the real Leah Brahms is a very forceful personality and is very happy to tell you what she thinks you should be doing right now. Yeah, that's actually an interesting aspect of this that you could have fun with in a story, though, because Having your characters that the players are playing meet someone who's not the real thing and then meet the real thing later. Yeah, that's something that's been used in fiction a lot as a way of distinguishing the two, is just give them a different personality. And holographic simulations in that regard in Star Trek very often use this trope because the holographic simulation is first and foremost designed to use the appearance of the individual that is being replicated. Whether it replicates their personality is, well, quite frankly, it's difficult to program a simulation to actually capture the personality of the original. So they usually just have it run some more generic AI routine to simulate a personality, not necessarily a specific personality. Which is kind of sort of what Giordi did. Is that when you see him doing this stuff in the episode with the creating the simulation, he more or less tells the computer to use rather use some a personality routine that it already had stored in its database. He doesn't actually create a personality routine for it at all. That's you know, the only thing he could do, and it's pretty typical for the way holograms are programmed in Star Trek. Yes, you can do very, very detailed, in-depth, careful, precise personality recreations. Most people don't. Oh, here's another fun thing with this episode. This has the trope of reusing actors to play different characters. Because this character was in Disaster and died. Then they reused the actress in Galaxy's Child to play a completely different character. Which, as a GM doing a TTRPG, if you have um, characters, you can just like use random crew pictures. You don't necessarily need to have a unique picture for every single character. Like, oh hey, here's crewman number 3, and use a name like Pavlik for crewman number 3. And of course, both of these as their just basically ca- not cameo, but extra roles where it's just like someone who is standing there to be an Enterprise crew member, and well, I mean, this one is literally the con officer on the Enterprise D who dies when the quantum filament hits the ship. That's it. That's the entire role. Be a red shirt who dies. Anyway, though, the script apparently didn't actually care about who played the role even. So they just like had some random actress uh, uh, in the seat when the console explodes. Kabloom. Oh well, that is actually something that's highly noteworthy in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and also some of the other seasons. Is that they would sometimes use actors who aren't doing, important roles to replay several roles. Then again, there have been cases of significant roles getting recast because there's the whole thing with Kalar and Dr. Seelar, who are both played by Susie Plaxton in TNG. And no one really paid cared a huge about that. Well, I mean, there's also the fact that in DS9, they ended up having the guy who played Wayun play a Ferengi, and then came up with a story where they needed to have Wayun and the Ferengi guy who was also played by the same actor in the same scene. Yeah, that got fun. Anyway, though, that is something that you could have fun with in episodes because, like, obviously, Leah Brahms and the holographic simulation of Leah Brahms were played by the same actress because they're supposed to look the same. Now, Susan Gibney actually does a pretty good role here. Susan Gibney also does a good role of making the two of them different. Now, that's actually something that's interesting is that Michael is someone who is basically just mentioned once in Galaxy's Child. And it's like, oh yeah, but I have a husband. See you later, bye. And they don't ever actually go into any real detail about who he is. It's something thrown in so that Geordi will not have Leah Brahms as a love interest in later episodes. And also why Leah Brahms is so annoyed about the fact that Geordi created a hologram of her that was apparently romantically attracted to Geordi. Why Geordi programmed the hologram to be a love interest? Quite frankly, that was actually very questionable in the episode as aired. So yeah, the fact that they touched on it and made sense, even if it wasn't necessarily something that needed to happen. Oh yeah, yet another one of the random crew people. This is actually one that's like a minor recurring character though, so that was kind of cool. And none of her appearances were important. Like there's at least four of them though. Again though, it's like when you're doing a TTRPG, you can have like minor characters that sometimes show up, sometimes don't. That's no big deal. I mean, especially if you're doing Star Trek Adventures and you have a starship like the Enterprise, you're going to have a bunch of people on it. You don't need to try to use them all the time. Do. Now, Booby Trap was when we had the holographic simulation and the AI controlling the holographic simulation of Leah Brahms actually had to take over part of the Enterprise's computer in order to um, have the power relays alternate polarity fast enough in order to escape the booby trap. Quite frankly, the logic behind why that was necessary is a giant pile of technobabble. So if you felt like doing that, fine. If you don't feel like doing that, you feel free to insert your own technobabble here. Anyway, though, Galaxy's Child was kind of interesting since what's the best way to put this? Oh yeah. Oh, that's another thing. All good things has it that Geordi married a woman named Leah. It doesn't say who she is. It just mentions her by name, and also has three children. Now, Sidney LaForge and Elantra LaForge are characters that show up in Star Trek Picard. We don't see their mother. Hmm. Actually, that's an interesting point. Are they actually stated to be okay, so the alternate timeline one, maybe. Um, oh yeah, also, Alondra is played by Micah Burton, who looks a lot like Geordie LaForge because, yeah, LeVar Burton, Micah Burton, yeah. Here's the thing though, is that in Star Trek Picard, it doesn't really. Well, the whole assimilation thing is that assimilation was always reversible. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Really? Well, to be quite honest, Jack Crusher and Sidney LaForge doesn't actually. Well, let's just say it's not a bad option. Yeah, she really doesn't look quite the same. Oh, and she also ends up being Seven of Nine's helmsman. Yay. Okay, actually, there's the only reason I was looking at this is I was trying to figure out what it says about the mother, and oh yeah, it just mentions that he got married to someone. Doesn't even say who. Okay, so yeah, that's one of those things where it's like if you're going to take a canon character and do a point later in their life than the TV show showed them at, well, hey, it's you making up stuff, make up stuff. It is noteworthy that, you know, possible futures exist, but possible futures in Star Trek are usually something so vague that you don't have a whole lot to work with. And also, even if you do take what's there, you have a lot of room to tinker with it. Yeah, that's about it. Anyway, back to Galaxy Show. So the Leah Brahms thing is actually a huge part of the episode, which also makes for a large part of the episode as aired being taken up with Geordie LaForge talking to Leah Brahms and about a wide variety of things, honestly. It starts out as the B plot in the episode, or I guess you could say the A plot, with the creature being a B plot, because the creature doesn't actually show up at the beginning. Leah Brahms is doing her like checkup. It's like, yes, the ship seems to be working fine. Let's look at these all these other modifications that you have made. Anyway, though. Oh, right. That is actually an interesting thing. Is that uh the reason that the parent or mother creature is dead is because the Enterprise shot it. That is actually the sort of thing that you could throw it at your players as a sort of a like, hey, what do you of actions having consequences sort of thing? Because like in the episode they don't know why the Cosmozoan is attacking them. So, and they aren't actually trying to kill it. They're just trying to like, well, we'll just try to, force it to back off. Well, that didn't work. Parent dies. Then they decide to, do the operation to remove the baby so that the baby can live, even if the parent's dead. Then the baby does this. Yeah, it's draining energy out of the ship. So they tinker with the power conduits to make it so that the energy frequency is something the baby doesn't like to get the baby to leave, which gives you the question of like, okay, so if the baby is leaving, where is it going? Uh, yeah, I don't think Cosmozoan babies are supposed to be weaned after only 5 hours. So anyway, though, yeah, the question of whether the thing dies later on is completely unstated. They don't really look into that at all. And that's about it. It's an episode that has a whole bunch of mostly personal drama. That's actually the majority of the episode is the personal drama. It's like as an episode, it has several things that are, like new bits of lore and random characters that will never be seen again. Actually, this is her first appearance, and she shows up two more times. So, oh, this is one of the characters that shows up in schisms to get uh, menaced by the Solanogen life forms. That's fun. Anyway, though, like I was saying earlier about minor characters that sometimes show up more than once. Oh, hey, Well, see, oh, yeah, right. That's the thing. Is like the reason for Leah Brahms being unfriendly is that it's kind of her. This is my work face thing because her idea of professionalism was that when you're here to do business, you do business. You don't, fraternize with the help. Yeah. Anyways, though, had to sneeze. Yeah, that's about it. Not this episode was one of those where people did things, looked at things, and it added a bunch of stuff to the setting that did actually somewhat get used later. Because, like I mentioned about the whole like Geordie's children thing, it's like the whole Leah Brahms plot was very back burner, and they didn't ever actually canonically state that it was definitely her that he married later. It could have been a different woman named Leah. It's not actually clear in the episode who it was, but you know, also actually that is an interesting point. It's like the whole logic here is like he would have had to have married her relatively soon after this episode, and if she is actually already married, and that where did her husband go? Yeah, that's kind of a sticky thing that I would avoid messing with. Honestly, Leah Brahms as a character was honestly a great idea. Although I can see why TNG didn't use the character very often is because she's someone who is like Starfleet Corps of Engineers, someone who's like not someone who works on a starship. So the person you talk to if you go to the Corps of Engineers headquarters building, not someone you normally see anywhere else. Uh, oh yeah, this also is this scene here is that you could totally write a scene like this, but only if it makes sense for a story. And honestly, with Star Trek Adventures, one of my observations with Star Trek Adventures is that usually character players don't really seem to go too heavy on the romance plots. They really, I haven't seen very many players in Star Trek Adventures actually really want to do romance plots. Well. Now, this is something that's interesting, and something that is often lost to people is that what Brahms here is talking about isn't novel writing. What Brahms here is talking about is technical writing, where you write an explanation of how to do something and not a story. And also, this is the part where Leah finally figures out that Geordie's interest in her is not entirely professional, and it's something that had been annoying her the entire time because she's like, "Oh," because Geordie kept acting like he'd met her before when he hadn't, and Leah found it to be weird and unnatural. And when he first did it, she just it's like, "Oh, that's strange." And after a while, she's like, "Okay, this is a recurring thing, and something is going on, and I don't like it." Oh well. Oh, and we haven't even gotten to the whole like hologram thing yet. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, though, that was actually a very interesting plot point. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it with that. It's like the whole plot point of Geordi and Dr. Brahms's personality clash hits home for me because of the way it was written is that neither one of them is actually doing something that is intentionally meant to hurt the other. The issue is that the two of them fundamentally want different things out of their interactions with each other. And whether or not what Geordi wants is realistic, well, it's not what Brahms wants. So, whether it's harmless or not is not something she kid takes into consideration. And yeah, she just doesn't like it. Ready then. Oh, also, she really, really, really didn't like the way that he wrote the personality of her holographic double. Oh boy. Oh, and yeah, she totally, totally is like, oh, wait, you made a version of me that you can play with on the holodeck. Mm. Anyway, though, time to go. This episode went to a lot of places, and it was very much a world building episode. It, but mostly in like the character interactions because it doesn't really have a big plot. It's mostly just like a slice of life episode, although with the Leia Brahms plot thrown in to make it interesting. And that's about it for this episode. Fun, something that you could do something along the lines of, but I wouldn't consider it to be something that you would like necessarily want to use as is. You'd like have your crew doing stuff related to these ideas, not actually using these ideas directly. And well, see you guys later.